You're listening to VideoMy Pod's Employer Brand Series. I'm David Macciocca, and joining me for this very special Singapore edition is the wonderful co-host, Emma Lang. We're sitting down with incredible people shaping employer brand across the region to have honest conversations about what's working, what's not, and where to next for employer brand and recruitment marketing. Where's it all heading? There's a lot to learn from this part of the world in Singapore. Let's get into it.
Well, welcome to the VideoMy podcast, where we go deep in employer brand. We had a fantastic episode today. I'm David Macciocca.
I'm Emma Lang.
And I'm Anne Caron.
And we are really excited to be unpacking how to personalize communication through employee stories in maybe companies that aren't so big, maybe under 1,000, but the importance of telling stories and having personalized content to attract and maybe to retain talent. Do you mind introducing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a people strategy advisor, and I work with CEO and founders of companies, typically around 10 to 50 employees, and I help them build the conditions for scale while remaining positive and high performing. And I've been doing this for 10 years now. Prior to that, I was with Google for 10 years, between 2005 and 2015. And when I joined Google in 2005, so globally the company was 5,000 people, but I joined in Europe. In Europe, we were only 1,500. And interestingly, it's hard to believe now, but people did not apply to Google at the time. So our job posts were dry of candidates because people knew Google as, a search engine, but not as an employer. So my role when I arrived was to place Google on the map as an employer of choice and to build an internal headhunting team to actually go and get those people. So I did all that, employer branding exercise of telling people, who we were. And 10 years later, so I was here in Singapore at that time, and we had moved from 5,000 globally to 65,000 people. And we actually had totally reverse issue. We were receiving between 2 and 3 million applications a year. And I think it's where the employer branding kind of went the wrong way. It went beyond the truth. A good employer brand is when you tell the truth. And at that point, people were just joining to add Google on their resume. And also people were staying not necessarily for the right reasons. And I know that I was one of the people like that. It took me probably 2 years to actually make the move because everybody I was speaking to were telling me, why would you leave Google? Everybody tries to get in. And so you actually get inside a place where you're not necessarily in sync anymore. It had been 10 years, so it was totally legitimate to leave. But I was like thinking, there's something wrong with me. If I'm not happy at Google, where will I be happy?
Yeah, I feel like we're talking to one of the original OGs here. I was just over at Google's office yesterday, and it is a fascinating camp. It feels like a campus. You definitely get your steps up walking around. Right. It is massive. And luckily, we do have Glynis, who's going to be joining us in this podcast series, who works at Google, who's the recruitment marketing manager. But I'm absolutely stoked to unpack this. I think what you're doing is really valuable, assisting CEOs and founders of smaller companies and helping them break through. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking this episode.
Me too. I think the experience of the scale that you've witnessed from the likes of Google to the startups and organizations you work with now, and how you can bring the leaders on the journey around. I loved how you positioned it of creating the conditions for growth to thrive, for the employer brand and the employee workplace to thrive. So maybe we could start there around the conditions that you focus on that supports more of the employer brand, talent marketing work streams that you lean into with your role now?
Yeah. So I think one of the core pillars of what I do is rooted in identity. The reality is that people will not remember what you say as a leader, as an organization. They will remember how you make them feel. And to be able to control, if you want to control the narrative in terms of how people feel, you need to be authentic, right? Yeah. People feel the lie. So the very first job when you want to build an organization, and an organization is a group of people, so in a business environment, it's companies, but it's true for any type of organization, communities, and everything. When you build an organization, and you need to be clear in terms of who you are as a leader. And that's the very first job that I do with my clients, is really get them to articulate who they are as an individual, to really look at the mirror and embrace who they are. Because this is the core material that they're going to have to deal with for building that organization. There is so much that they will have to do. They won't have time to change. So it's very important to take that person and to be able to be clear in terms of what are the values, what makes you tick, what makes you, what triggers you, what are your core philosophies, so that then this becomes the core material that HR teams can work on. So you have then a people strategy that will be able to translate into HR policies that are in sync with who you are.
Yeah. So when we talk about CEOs or founders of smaller size companies, when you were talking, I was almost thinking, I don't know if you had this thought as well, like hiring managers or executives who should have that shadow when they walk in the room, that identity, that trust that they're able to be their authentic self. They can't be someone who they can't be. I just want to touch on the pillars, not employee brand pillars, but the pillars that enable someone to be their authentic self, and how that can be translated into standards or messages that are aligned to the business. So I'm assuming that we're talking about values or your mission, or the founder's mission or the CEO's mission. Are there others?
So you mean at the CEO level, at the leadership?
As executive.
90% of the company culture comes from the CEO. So that's why I focus on the CEO. And somehow, no matter the size of the organization, when there is a change in CEO in a big organization, you do feel that at every layer of the organization. And often that goes with a wave of people leaving, and somehow that's healthy, because people who thrive with CEO A may not thrive with CEO B, and denying that is a big, big mistake. So being authentic is being clear in terms of who you are as an individual, and being honest, and really embracing that fully. How do you do that? It's, to me, a CEO is lonely. It's very hard to be at the top, so you need to have an advisor, a coach, either one or both. The coach will help you to identify who you are, but also to help you see those blind spots, things that triggers you very often, that tends to end up being aspirational values in your organization, the things that we need to be, but we are not. And the more you have of those, the more you're actually lying to your employees. You know, you're telling we need to be this, but what they feel is totally different. So it's very important to do that first exercise. The mission vision is indeed very important because it's driving not the feeling, but more the direction. It's like, this is why we're here. So it helps people understand in which way they're contributing to something bigger, no matter whereabouts in the organization they are. And this is something that is extremely key for all the layers of management to know about. And that's the third pillar that I would add, which is communication. And it's quite interesting to see the number of CEOs that are not comfortable communicating at the company level. And to me, this is absolutely critical. I love the concept of all hands that I discovered at Google 20 years ago, where both founders, Larry and Sergey, were in front of the company taking open questions and answering the hard questions. This is the best way to control the narrative and to make sure that people understand why they're here and how we're working here beyond what you said in a presentation or what is written on the culture deck. This is where it becomes important. And it's only just through repetition that you can do that, and by answering those difficult questions. And it's absolutely fine to say, I don't know, or we haven't made a decision on that yet, or, well, I know you don't like it, but that's who we are. And we stand by it.
What are your thoughts when you think about supporting, hiring managers and the content?
I think there's definitely some learnings here, and I love how we're starting from the top, the CEO level, and the importance of the open communication and the interaction. Because to your point, that's what will connect, is having those town halls and hearing it firsthand, and then translating that to the employer brand space as well. We need the hiring managers, the people leaders, to follow that lead and do the same thing for their internal teams, but also for the external talent piece as well. So then, knowing that they're empowered, this is how the leaders behave, I can follow suit and then replicate that in the ways they need to support, whether it's the hiring needs, the employer branding needs, to attract talent into that organisation too. I love the fact that it's defined from the top, because quite a lot we start.
So defined and documented. So at the founder CEO level, with my clients, we create something that I call the founder charter. And that is a summary, it's a document that summarizes all the core values and philosophies of that CEO. And that's something that then can get translated into the people strategies and employer branding, etc. Then you will have also people management core values. What is a people manager in our organization? You would have also a ideal candidate profile. Who will thrive in our organization given our values and our work environment? I work in startups, so it's quite a specific environment. It's changing all the time. It's exciting for sure, but not for everyone. It's messy. And a lot of founders get to that point where it's like, it's too messy. We need to make it organized. So they're tempted to put organized in the values as an objective. And then they would hire people who come from organized setup so that they can bring organization to the company.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work this way. What happens, like, you're lying, you're making a false promise to these people. What you need to do is to say that, we embrace the fact that we're messy, but people here thrive in chaos. Yeah. They're able to organize mess or make sense of a mess. when you say that to people, they immediately know whether that's something that they're attracted to or they feel discouraged and the like. And that's what a good culture and, when this is well articulated, you can attract the right people and discourage people who will not fit.
Well, let's talk about how we align messages externally to attract talent. Because obviously, the CEO's voice can only go so far. And in some studies, some CEOs' messages are not necessarily believable. It's not too dissimilar to marketing material. We do know when the wool's being pulled over our eyes. But trust really comes from employees, and usually early stage employees are really passionate about the work that they're doing, but how do we mobilize them? Do you have any tips for people who are trying to create an ambassador program or cultivate a culture where internally employees are sharing content of what it's like to work within the company?
Yeah, so I agree. For me, the two main source of employer branding are the employees and the candidates.
The candidates.
Yes.
The candidates joining.
Candidates. Full stop.
Going through the experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even a candidate is speaking, right? When you actually speak quite a lot when you're going through interviews, and you will speak about the terrible experiences that you had, and the amazing ones. I actually wrote an article about that on LinkedIn way back, but it's a concept that I created at Google with the teams that I had. I called it the cookie effect. And basically it's speaking about the fact when you go to a coffee place, there is, the bare minimum that you expect. You want to have hot coffee, you want to have the right amount, you want the...
Double espresso, please.
Sorry?
Double espresso, please.
Exactly, please. You want the cup to be clean, right? And if that happens, good, that's expected. You're not going to speak about it. If the cup is dirty, if you will speak about this, and you will not go anymore, and you will tell your friends not to go. The opposite is true. If you have a wow experience, if there is a cookie on the side that is delicious, you're going to take a picture of it, you're going to tell your friends and come back with your friends. And so what you want to do as an organization is to create a cookie effect with your candidates and your employees. And so you need to create those experiences because that's the only thing that you control. You cannot control the narrative of what your employees are saying and what your candidates are saying, but you're in control of the experience that will create the narrative. And this is not expensive. A lot of people think, oh, employer branding, we don't have a budget for that. It's not a budget, it's an intention. And be creative. Integrate. Sometimes it's just about a birthday note during the recruitment process. A recruitment process on average is 3 months. Leadership, 6 months. It means that in a leadership, you have one chance out of 2 that your candidate's going to have their birthday during the recruitment process. Collect that date, make it in your calendar, and even if the candidate was rejected, just send that note. We can automate everything now, so just be intentional. It's not about. It's just being authentic and positive and creative.
So it's about communicating, identifying the opportunities to communicate effectively.
So let the communication happen from your employees and from the candidates. Create the conditions, create the experiences. I call it creating shareworthy experiences.
I'm genuinely excited about this one. If you work in talent acquisition or employer brand, you would have come across James Ellis. 4 books, over 15 years of experience, one of the most recognised employer brand authority voices in the world. On September 2nd, he's coming to Melbourne for the first time ever. He'll be talking about how to be choosable how to be different in a market that's super competitive. If you're in TA or employer brand, or you're a CPO looking for differentiation, this is the most valuable afternoon that you'll have this year. Tickets are in sale now. Don't sleep on this.
You were really clear on the candidate experience and how you can create those moments so that they do have a good experience. How do we mobilize employees and empower them to share their stories?
So it's interesting. So you spoke about empowering, right? Mm-hmm. So empowering means that as an employer, I'm comfortable with them doing it. So it starts from trust.
Culture, yep.
And this is the first step. Not everybody's comfortable with trusting their employees to tell the right stories. And I think this is a huge mistake, not to trust your employees, because it means that you're starting from the wrong foundations. I mean, there's something wrong earlier on that journey if you don't trust your employees to tell the right stories. And the employees also need to be trustful that if they speak up, nothing will be happening to them, right? That they're actually okay to do that. So these has to be expressed.
Sure. When we think about things from an enterprise perspective, because usually the bigger companies do have employee brand or recruitment marketing initiatives, there's usually a process like, okay, create content, but allow me to approve it before I proceed.
But so I'm speaking about the opposite. Like it's like go. I mean, I find that horrible when we go halfway through. It's like do it or don't do it. So to me, it's like what's the worst that you can have?
So the foundation is trust.
The foundation is trust, just trust. Now build the right conditions for them to tell the stories. And these conditions are the right conditions that you want for people to be performing anyways. These are exactly the same foundations. So just invest. That's where the energy should go, is to build an organization that is consistent with who you are, what you say, and that which you sell to the candidates. So there's consistency on that, and then you create those moments, and it could be the all hands, and there's tons of things that happen every day. It could be a manager telling that, and to me, it's great when you give the power to the employees to go online on their own and share. And I do encourage my clients to train their employees on personal branding, because you want them to go online for their own benefit. If they're increasing their brand, they're increasing your brand as well.
Yeah, it's a great way to sell it. What to the employees that your personal brand will increase, and they'll get a skill. Recognition internally and externally is powerful. What are a couple of other ways that gets an employee on the hook?
On the hook.
Participation.
To
participate in the program.
Well, I mean, the fact that you call it a program somehow, I mean, employees are, my experience, that employees are happy to share from the moment they feel, they truly feel in sync with the message that you're asking them to share.
Yeah, I'll lean back there a little bit, because say, for instance, you don't have good tenure, or you're not performing to the standard, you wouldn't give that person a license to create content, to share that content. You would probably like to be a little bit selective on who you issue, because there is trust there.
But at the end of the day, they will still share it, right? And who do you believe?
I think there's different ends of the spectrum of advocacy here. So there's so much research to show the power of the authentic employee content on advocacy, whether that's just sharing those moments on LinkedIn.
Actually did that, right? I think Hotspot opened entirely their Snapchat channel to employees. So employees are creating the whole content of their channel, and they've seen incredible results.
Yeah.
And so it's not approved. There's no approval system to that.
And I think that's a really great example of that. And they know they've harnessed the power of that. I'm sure maybe behind the scenes they would have, to your point, there's trust, but I think there's also equipping them. So letting them know, that we really empower you to do this, but there will be some guidelines behind it. And for me, that's where I was thinking the lens of advocacy. So you want your CEOs and your C-suites to go out and talk and advocate for the organisation. But for perhaps larger ones, they go through media training for that. They have to have the right company narrative. They know what to say, what not to say. So you need to equip them at that level to equip them with the mass programs where you've got 100 employees or 100,000 employees, where you want them to participate in maybe a social ambassador program or to submit content to create. And I think those ones are perhaps where you might need to help manage them a little bit, guide them in the right direction. It depends on the output of the content, I guess.
I think the key is training.
People who are not in those programs will still post on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely.
If it's not
Right.
LinkedIn,
So-
it could be Glassdoor, it could be
exactly.
it could be somewhere.
So you cannot control to that extent anyways. So
You can't. But if you give everyone a license and tool them up, it's like throwing fuel on the fire, because then it goes off. By not equipping them with, but I really like your narrative by training people on personal brand. I think it's really important to communicate the benefits of employee brand and how to go about that, because you are creating a framework of what the expectation is, maybe the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, but for their own sake.
For their own sake, that's right.
I think from the moment you actually bring guidelines, then you feel bought by the company to say something for the company. From the moment people are going to post on LinkedIn, whatever they speak about, if you look at their profile, you're going to see who they work for. And gradually they will speak about things that will have a side effect on you. So on what you mentioned, again, what is the worst that could happen? A lot of companies are creating policies, guidelines based on fear of the worst happening, or this happened once, we can't have that happen anymore. So let's put a policy avoiding this to happen ever again. But most of the time, we're speaking about one individual or a very, very small amount of the people that, perhaps could be educated. Perhaps there's something that we didn't tell them right. And so in that case, a policy will not help at all. Or perhaps they're not a fit in that case, bye-bye, thank you, and that's fine.
I'm so torn, because I absolutely agree with you, because I have a startup or startup mentality.
But the thing is, if you put a policy in place and you say, let me tell you, let's take a stupid example. You have this employee that arrives late all the time, right? And that gets on your nerves. And the performance is there is an impact on the performance.
Yeah.
So 2 options, and most of the people go for the second one. The first one, you go to that person and you speak with them, and you say, okay, you're not performing, but it's normal. You're missing half of the day, so you can't. Okay, and if it's not working, second option, you go to HR. And you ask HR to put a policy that if people arrive 15 minutes late, then they will, whatever, right? And that's a policy. The result is that this person is not going to improve at all, right? If setting up a policy worked for people making mistakes, our jails will be empty, okay? So people who are doing mistakes are not doing it or will not stop doing it because there's a policy or a rule, right? That's either they don't know or they don't care. For the rest of the people, that policy is telling them, we don't trust you. To know that it's respectful to arrive at work on time. And that's where I really loved Netflix that came out. That judgment value that they had really resonates with me. It's not for everyone. That really differentiated their culture, and that's great. But they said, you know what? We hire grown-up adults. And we shouldn't have to tell people, grown-up adults, how to work, how to behave in a working environment. And we decide not to infantilize them and just trust that they will know what to do. If they abuse the system, they're out. And so as a reaction, there is a no-leave policy. So you choose, you know best than anybody else when is the right time to take leave. You know that if half of your team is going on vacation, you're probably not going on vacation, right? I mean, should I have to put that in writing for you? Or are you smart enough to realize that?
No,
hopefully you're hiring the second one, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Because I have a small company and startup mentality. We're still considered a startup, and moving quickly and not being highly regulated, but having transparent conversations is the straighter line to success. There's also a cheat sheet or a trick you can do to attract talent by putting your highest performers in front of, and giving them an opportunity to share their authentic stories, which then enables you to attract those types of people that you want to get, because there's different saying birds of a feather flock together.
And that goes on your career page or
just telling their stories through social, their authentic stories of what life's like within a company.
But they come from you. They're posted by you or by the employee.
By the employee.
By the employee.
Or either.
Yeah, either or.
No, because I make the difference between content that is generated by the company, which needs to happen, right? And it needs to be there, but it will never be as trusted, indeed, that when it's generated by the employee. And
organic content.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, we start there, indeed, with the companies, because a lot of companies are. I'm here to challenge my clients.
Yeah, well, it's very tempting.
But most of them are like you. It's like, I'm not sure I'm that comfortable with that level of trust to give.
I am. Personally, I'll just declare I am, because I live it every day. But my thought are for people who work for bigger companies, who is the majority of people who are listening to the episode, and them thinking through, well, how do I unlock the gates? Because I do want to let it out of what it's really like here. I am a little bit restricted in what I can and can't do, because I might be stealing your thunder. Because are you feeling that when you're?
Could you feel me shaking as you were kind of saying, just let them? It's same. I was really toying with it as you were talking through it, because it's a really interesting topic, I think, to talk through and unpack. Because coming from an MNC, when you're talking about just let them do anything. I'm no, as the brand protector, as there are global comms policies, social policies. Some organisations, you mentioned it, are highly regulated. There can be a lot of damage done if somebody talks about that product or this project. So coming from that context, it's terrifying. However, to flip it, I mean, the dream for an employer brand team is to know that your 1,000 employees or your 100,000 employees are so trusted and proactive and just naturally advocating. Let's just use LinkedIn as an example. I mean, that's half your job done in itself, that you know that they're all singing from a similar hymn sheet, but telling their own personal story in their own way. And they feel entrusted to do that. And we know that impact, that engagement will be huge. But I think we're the opposites. From a large organisation, that I've never seen that happen. Because not everyone's on LinkedIn, first of all.
I've seen it. Not everyone, but ambassador programs.
And that's,
that are tight. So, putting it out there to a larger company, people put their hand up. I will advocate for this business.
Exactly, and I think that's it. Finding those people, because not 100% of your workforce base will, but your natural advocates and those that want to learn more, yes, will put their hand up.
Yeah, and then you can.
Yeah, nurture those guys.
Yeah. I'm interested to know, to your point around the executives that push back, the leaders that let's define them as a leader, a CEO, founder, a hiring manager, a leader, the persona of a leader.
Well, the hiring,
they push back.
The decision in any case come from the very top, right? I mean,
of course.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So they push back, yeah.
They push back, and they might be a little bit, they might be a champion of the product that they've got or the service that they're providing, but they're very hesitant to tell their story. How do you unlock a leader to be their authentic self externally to the people who work within the company?
Again, I think I would train them to getting out. So train them to start posting. It's the easiest. And so there's a few companies do that, but I think the power that it has if you're actually training, because again, it's win-win. So training them on social media, just posting employer branding, speaking, so they can go to podcasts, speaking on stages as well. It's fantastic for your brand. And of course, no one will speak bad about their own company on stage. I mean, that would be the killer of their own personal brand. So it's growing them, grooming them, growing them, show that you care for them. And that will circle back. I was speaking about an example to a client recently. When I was at Google, one of the teams that I had were resume screeners. So what they were doing all day long were reviewing thousands of resumes, rejecting the huge majority, and then forwarding those that looked good enough to recruiters. So definitely not the super exciting role that would make you attractive on LinkedIn. For all my teams, I had always, wanted them to work on side projects. So this team was the same. All of them were working on side projects, optimizing processes, building new tools for clients. So the clients were mostly recruiters, but not just, some were hiring managers as well, creating a new initiative, organizing learning sessions on a specific team or whatsoever, right, they were doing. And because that was important to me to keep them excited. And it was a very entry-level job. I hired for potential and was training them, but obviously that was not a job that they were going to stay for more than a year and a half, 2 years.
I feel like I want to apply for this role.
Yeah.
Personal development.
But the thing that happened is their brand internally started to grow, and I started to get my team poached by my colleagues to hire them for their recruiter roles or their employer branding roles or whatsoever, and even in the business as well. So
That's a good story.
Yeah. Good sign of a leader.
And then even what happened, people started to apply to join my team, which had never been seen before. Resumes, the first time I received an internal candidate, willing to join was, really? I'm trying to get them out. So what I'm saying is, a lot of people are like, you're trying to grow them, but you're making them accessible to the competition. Yes. And that's great. that's actually a great thing because it will shine on you ultimately.
Yeah.
It's not an immediate result, but for me, the best branding is organic.
Yeah.
And that's why it comes from the employees getting, so encourage them, groom them, use your, so the managers need to be trained so that they can train and encourage their teams, etc. Do not look for a direct result. Just trust the process that ultimately it will shine on you. And that's why the thing that you can control is the experience. So create share-worthy experiences. The examples that came to my mind, like, things that really, get people to communicate about it. When there were all these layoffs, Airbnb did amazing. They still laid off, but the CEO did such amazing announcements, the way that he announced it and the perks that were given to the people leaving just left everyone voiceless. No, because they actually posted and people who were laid off were thankful for the consideration. That's an experience. It's crazy. And so the more you can create experiences like that people are going to speak about. On the candidate side, you have, I love that one, IKEA. Well, they're creative, we know. But so they were in Australia. They were opening a new shop. It's not shop, anyway, a new thing. And I think they were hiring in the hundreds of people. So what they did is that they created career instructions, or I don't know how they called it, right? You know that example, and they placed it.
Yes.
It's free, but the experience is amazing, and people started speaking about this. So to me, in employer brand, we need to have creative people who create experiences that people are going to speak about.
The examples you just gave were fantastic examples, and you just kept on bringing them out. They're all moments that matter.
Yeah.
And as a storyteller, an employer brander, or a recruitment marketer, we're looking for those moments to share those stories.
But create them.
Create them,
Create those
absolutely.
conditions, as you
Yeah,
said
create
at
the
start.
conditions for people to speak for you.
Yeah, they act as the springboard for the.
So at Google, at some point, we had I don't remember how often we were doing this, but it was we were sharing my Google magic moment, and so it was like a whole hands thing. But people were going to the stage and speaking on the mic about their magic moment, and it was so emotional. Really, people were speaking about how when, they were sick or their mother was sick, and how the team came together and actually collected leaves so that they could take a longer medical leave to be with their mother or to get treated. I spoke about when, so I got pregnant twice when I was with Google, and the first time I was pregnant, I joined Google on a temp contract, which was the case at Google for almost all the HR jobs. And I remember I had a meeting with my manager, and I was 3 months pregnant, and he was going to convert me, and he was like, "Okay, I want to tell you, I'm going to convert you." "Oh, really? Oh, thank you so much." "Well, I'm pregnant." So I'm like, say, "Oh, congratulations." Well, and I was like, "But I guess for the conversion, then it's going to be a problem." And he was like, "What? No, of course not. I mean, that would be terrible. It will be a discrimination." And I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, okay." And the second one, I had the same experience. I was pregnant. I was changing job, and when I was hired in the second job, I was 6 months pregnant. I was so thankful for the organization to allow me to do that. So it sounds crazy to speak about that. My second one, I had him 15 years ago. So of course, these conversations seem more open today. But 15 years, 20 years ago, it was not necessarily the case. And but yeah, so you open up this discussion, get people to speak.
Yeah,
and
I
then
love it.
capture it. Those magic mic
Magic moments.
Magic moments, not magic mic. Unpicking them internally and then showcasing them externally. You know, if you can, if the employee's happy to share those really personal stories. But that's the gold, isn't it?
It starts with one.
Yeah.
You know, when I start, all my clients, they know that I'm on their back for months until they actually roll out the all hands. Because for me, that's a non-negotiable. If you need to be in front of your team and be able to take on these questions. If you can't, that's a problem. So I'm on their back for that. And also about it. And so for the all hands, because we need people to ask questions, I tell them, find people to already have questions before. So the first one will start ask questions, and then that will encourage people to so you can do the same for the magic moments. Get 2-3 people who have already a great story ready to share, and they're comfortable sharing it. It will trigger some more.
Yeah, the snowball effect, right?
Exactly.
People feel comfortable.
Yeah.
How about, I have a question around those all hands moments, for example, and you talked about it earlier around making sure there's not a disconnect. We're not painting this polished picture, but however the reality is here, and setting the expectations of what it's like to work in a startup around that organised piece versus being agile. How do you coach the leaders? And I'm thinking about this for employees too, because it's really important how we're realistic with the expectations. You know, I love working here. This is my experience. And not to say, but this is really hard, but how do you set expectations going, but I thrive here because of this type of environment and I'm this type of person. And it allows, to your point earlier, I think, around people opting out, which is a really important part of employer branding. You're bringing in the right people, other people opt out, which is a good thing. But sometimes I think it's hard to articulate setting those expectations, if that makes sense. So how do you coach your leaders through perhaps answering those hard questions at all hands, or how do they talk to those conditions that you're creating?
Yeah, so great question. And we've spoken to most of it. I'm just going to pile it, in order. So it starts with articulating it, right? What we spoke about, the identity that's in their founder charter, right? We have the mission and vision and values that then decide. So the mission, vision, it's the it will generate the business strategy. The values are the people strategy. How do we work here? So this is clear. It has been communicated, and everything is built based on that. Yes. So all our HR policies are validated against every single one of our values, and ensuring that it's not contradicting. All right. So you have a system where everything is consistent and making sense. And then you have the all hands. And every single question that comes is an opportunity to either touch on the mission, on the vision, or the values. Because all your argumentation should always be one of these three. So why did we decide to go to Australia or to launch this new product? Going to the vision, or going because this is where we're going, because this is what we do, or this is who we are, because this is who we are. Mm-hmm. And so the more you repeat that and you put that in the context, the more it becomes clearer to people, and they can still opt out as individual. I mean, I've always been against retention at all costs in general. But yeah, people, we change also as individual. We're not the same person over 5 years and 10 years, let alone. So it's fine. And the best way to say goodbye is in good terms, because we call them boomerang. We have so many in the tech companies. You leave Google, you do your little startup, and then you go back. And same for Meta and all those, and same for other companies, right? So
brilliant. Thank you.
I love how you mentioned a boomerang. The Australianism
yes.
just pop out. Very nice. But thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your story. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you to you. It's lovely being here.